Buying a new guitar on the internet can be a bit like Russian roulette. Sometimes you'll be fine, sometimes you'll get something that you really wish you hadn't bought because there's something really wrong with it. So I've just bought a new guitar online and I'm going to take you through the things that I would check and how I would set the guitar up. So first thing I would check is the electronics. So your volume, your switch, your tone. If you've got a coil tap, check that as well. So things I would check for, I'd make sure that there's no crackly pots. So when you're turning it up and down, if it's crackling, that's not a good sign. Likewise, the switch shouldn't crackle when you're changing pickup, and tone wise, that should all be nice and smooth without any crackles. Next thing I would check, input jack. So I'd give it a little twist to make sure that it was nice and tight, and to make sure again that it didn't cut in and out because it might have a dodgy input jack. You don't want that going in the middle of a gig. So another thing you want to check is your frets. Make sure that they're all nice and flush with the fingerboard and none of them are sticking out over the edge because they could be sharp and could cut your finger. Also with your frets, you want to make sure that each of your notes fret okay. So I would go through the whole guitar and play every single note on the fretboard to make sure there were no dead spots. Okay, if there's any dead spots, then it might be an issue with the fret, or it could be an issue with the neck. As well as checking all of the frets for dead notes, check them for sustain to make sure there aren't any that just cut out. But make yourself comfortable now because I'm going to check all 24 frets on all 7 strings for sustain. Oh, not really. Next thing I would look at is intonation. So intonation simply means that as well as being in tune when you play your open strings, it's also in tune as you move up the neck. And to change your intonation, you need to adjust your saddles here. Obviously if you've got a Floyd Rose trem, it'll be a different way of doing it. I'm not going to go into how to set your intonation because there are already about 1,000 videos on YouTube of how to do that, but the way you check your intonation is you tune up your strings and then you'll play the note with a tuner and make sure that it's dead in the middle, then play the same note on the 12th fret, the octave, and again it should be bang in the middle. If it's not, your intonation will need adjusting because you'll find that as you get higher up it will start sounding and it will sound out of tune when you're playing even though your guitar is in tune. So intonation, probably one of the most important things. So check your neck is straight. So way to do that, put your finger on top of the 12th fret, not in between the frets like you do when you're fretting a note, but on top of the 12th fret, and then put your finger on the 1st fret, again not in between but actually on top of the fret, and look down the neck. So the distance between the frets should be the same. If you're noticing, and you can do it on the 12th, the 24th as well, if you're noticing that there's a big gap in between the frets in the middle, then your neck is probably bowed outwards, so you'll need to adjust the truss rod. What I would suggest there is take it to a professional guitar tech or somebody at your guitar store that can do this sort of thing, because the last thing you want to do if you're not experienced is bugger up your neck by overdoing it or turning it the wrong way or something like that. But yeah, make sure your neck is nice and straight. This one might sound obvious, but your strap buttons, check those. I once had a guitar that I didn't check the strap button, was playing it at a gig and it just came off the strap and landed on the floor. It was actually a BC Rich Warlock, so one of the ends snapped off. So for the rest of its life it had a snapped off spike, which is metal but still very annoying. So this guitar has a neck through design, but if you've got a bolt on neck, you want to make sure that it's bolted on strong, you haven't got any loose nuts in there as well, so you want to double check those. Another thing that's very important is to unscrew the electronics plate on the back and make sure there are no tadpoles inside. Check your tuners to make sure that they are all functioning correctly. So the way I would do that is down tune a string and then tune it up. Okay, should be nice and tight when you're tightening it up then. And then play some bends and really bend that string. Should still be in tune. If it's a new set of strings, it might take a few tunings and a bit of stretching, but on the whole it shouldn't be going horrendously out of tune. If it does, then again it might just need a setup. It could be something to do with a nut. You might have a nut which isn't cut correctly for your string gauge. So again, best to take it to a tech and get somebody professional to look at it. And the last thing you need to check is that it does metal.